it's interesting. Sometimes people tune out when they hear about, economists talk or
like
financial
the cab
markets.
driver, I thought, but didn't.
But he didn't, and that's
He
the thing, because I think
Yeah.
people are starting to realize
Yeah.
these days that it's not just something that the bankers used to do. It really is. It's your life, and
Yeah.
we will talk about crypto soon.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, when you start to think about crypto, you start to realize that when I started teaching it, is that money is involved in every second of your existence every single day.
Yeah.
There's a financial transaction going on, whether it's your rent or your insurance
Your health.
or your health or your
Yeah.
pension or your this, and you're one big financial transaction between what you're buying, what you're selling, what you're making, what you're not doing.
Yeah.
And you just don't always see it.
Right.
And sometimes you can see it a little bit better with crypto, and sometimes you can see the central banks involved with fiat currencies, and we'll get into that. But I think people are starting to realize also, we spent most of 2020 fighting for freedom of speech and going head to head with tech platforms. But when you look at financial freedom, and I had this conversation with Dan Held, he's a big prominent kind of Bitcoiner. He said, you start to realize that as important as freedom of speech is, without financial freedom, there's no conversation about freedom of speech, because if you don't have the money to even do anything you want, look at people's accounts were suspended with the Canadian truckers, or look at Russians who don't have access to their dollar assets, whatever you think about that, or people in Ukraine that can't do that, then speaking is a luxury. I mean, your existence is controlled without that freedom of money.
Because you're afraid that any step you make could further just hurt you financially, or hurt the well-being of your family, or whatever it might be. Or there's a reason that people that have more tend to sort of throw it around more from the standpoint of power, because it is a cushion. It's a wedge, but it's also a cushion, and particularly again when it's created for the benefit of a very few number of people and institutions relative to others, and so. I've always thought, and one of the reasons I left Wall Street was because I mean, there's so many reasons, but I was very angry about this particular lack of financial empathy for, we've got this, we're in control of this system, and everyone else just is an outsider, and just not even realizing that has an ultimate impact on everyone, on all sides of that equation. And so I think that was something that was deeply in my psyche, but I also think that people in general, and I remember when I did quit, and a number of people who I used to work with were like, "You're crazy! Like, how are you going to live without money? Like, what's wrong with you?" My mom was one of those people, and I was just like, I value my freedom more than I value doing something for money, which is very different than having money. I value my ability to say, that doesn't work for me, right? Rather than, you pay me, so I'm just going to keep quiet and continue to do what I do. And ultimately, with all the other reasons I left, inside of me, that was a driving force. Because honestly, it was easy to keep making money. I was in a position where that was available to me. But I just didn't want to, at that cost, to what I still think is my freedom to be able to do and say what I actually think versus what I'm supposed to do for a particular financial institution. And I still feel that I didn't know when I quit. I didn't know if I was ever gonna get anything near like any kind of that pay collectively throughout my entire life. So it wasn't about that at all. It was about, this just isn't something that works for how I view my own personal freedom.
Right. And you were feeling that way about those markets, and then 9/11 happened. I think you were in the corner office in Goldman downtown that was really close to that happening, and you finally just said, life's too short, this is not worth it, and I'm gonna go do something else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just, so many people, particularly in New York, I think, because we witnessed, the proximity of the World Trade Center towers falling, and the sort of the debris that were actually pieces of humans and paper and everything mixed together that was floating around that part of the city. I mean, and how just dark that was on just so many different levels. And I remember we had been in I worked in the New York office. I was on the 29th floor. My office window actually faced the trajectory of the second plane that came careening into the World Trade Center. We didn't know it was terrorist attacks at the time, but it was actually like right there. And then, of course, we saw the smoke and we heard, and CNN started reporting. All these pieces started coming together as to what possibly had just happened. And I remember that on the fourth floor, which is where the commodity futures were being traded, and the commodity trades were happening, which were all connected to oil. It sort of goes back to the initial part of our conversation. Well, when something happens to basically create a dislocation between either supply and demand, or it's an event or a crisis or whatever it might be, Wall Street will just, if it can, keep trading. And that's what was going on the trading floor. The head of the commodities area was just basically telling everyone there to trade, because it wasn't clear what had happened. What was clear was that something had happened with airplanes, which meant something had happened with fuel, which meant something had happened with oil prices, and there was money to be made. And I was just sitting there watching this as people were, trying to call loved ones in the towers and et cetera, and just connect and all of that. And I'm just like, I can't even believe that you people are still trading. I mean, to be fair, that was at the beginning. We didn't all know what was going on, but it was just like, wow, that instinct is really, really strong. And I didn't have that instinct. I wound up spending several days at the New York Armory, working ultimately to sort of match up people's lost belongings, including sort of teeth, with lists of who and what had gone missing. Wow. Instead of going back to the office, when the office, Goldman, wanted us to come back to the office. Right. And I was just like, no, I'm going to just be doing this. And so all of that, it hits you when you're already, and I was already thinking, this doesn't feel right from a personal perspective, but this really is a wake-up call.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year is going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple-digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone. Also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?